In King's Landing, the long reign of Jaehaerys Targaryen began. However, the young king faced a mountain of problems when he took the crown, two of them larger than all the rest. The treasury was empty, and the crown's debt was mounting, and his secret marriage to his sister Alysanne grew less secret with every passing day. Both of these questions needed to be dealt with, and quickly. The need for gold was resolved by Rogar, the new master of coin, who reached out to the Iron Bank of Braavos and its rivals in Tyrosh and Myr to arrange 3 substantial loans. By playing each bank against the others, the Lord of Air negotiated favourable terms. This money allowed the construction of the Dragon Pit to finally be complete. Lord Rogar and the king both realised that these loans were a stopgap measure and only taxes could truly fix the problems. The king felt taxing lords directly could stir rebellion, so he decided to tax the things they liked so they might pay them of their own free will. Silk would be taxed, cloth of gold, cloth of silver, gemstones, Myrish lace and Myrish tapestries, Dornish wine, goods from craftsmen of Tyrosh, Lys and Pentos. Spices would also be taxed, heaviest of all. Jaehaerys then turned his attention to the other great matter awaiting him. At last, he sent for his queen, Alysanne Targaryen, and her dragon Silverwing, departed Dragonstone within an hour of his summons, after having been apart for the last 6 months. By this time, even the blind beggars of Fleabottom knew that Alysanne and Jaehaerys had been married, but for the sake of propriety, king and queen slept separately, whilst preparations were made for their second wedding. To save coin, the wedding was small by royal standards, in the throne room of the Red Keep with only about 1,000 guests. Lord Rogar Baratheon and the Dowager Queen Alyssa Velaryon were among those standing witness this time, but it was another wedding guest who excited most of the talk. The queen in the west had come as well, Reina Targaryen. Reina Targaryen had flown to see her siblings marry and to visit her daughter Arya. Bells rang throughout the city as the rites were concluded, and the flight of ravens took wing to every corner of the realm, proclaiming the happy union. Queen Alysanne insisted herself that the bedding ceremony took place, so all could see her marriage to her brother could no longer be called illegitimate. So after a long while, the marriage was finally consummated. With secrecy finally at an end, the king and his court waited to see how the realm would respond. Jaehaerys had concluded that the violent opposition that had greeted his brother Aegon's marriage to Rhaena had several causes. Their uncle Maegor taking a second wife in 39 AC, in defiance of both the High Septon and his own brother King Aenys, had shattered the delicate understanding between the Iron Throne and the faith in the starry sept of Old Town, so the marriage of Aegon and Rhaena had been seen as a further outrage. The denunciation lit a fire across the land, and the swords and stars had taken up their torches, along with scores of pious lords who feared the gods more than their king. Prince Aegon and Princess Rhaena had been little known amongst the small folk, and they had begun their royal progress without dragons, which left them vulnerable to the mobs that sprung up to attack them in the Riverlands. None of these conditions applied to Jaehaerys and Alysanne. There would be no denunciation from the starry sept. The present High Septon, complacent and cautious, not inclined to wake sleeping dragons. Also, King Jaehaerys was not about to repeat the mistakes his brother made. He and the queen meant to see the land they ruled, to learn its needs first hand, to meet his lords and to let themselves be seen by the small folk, to hear their grief in turn, but most important of all, wherever they went, they would be with their dragons. For all these reasons, Jaehaerys believed that the realm would accept his marriage, but he was not about to trust in chance. Words are wind, he told his council, but wind can fan a fire. My father and uncle fought words with steel and flame. We shall fight words with words, and put other fires out before they start. The king did not send out knights to fight his battles, but preachers. They were told to tell every man they meet of Alysanne's kindness, her sweet and gentle nature, and her love all the people in our kingdom. 7 were sent. In place of swords and axes, they were armed only with their wits, their courage, and their tongues. Only one of these 7 speakers was known to the common folk. No less of a person than Queen Eleanor Costaigne herself, the Black Bride, who had found King Maegor dead upon the Iron Throne, clad in her queenly raiment, which grew shabbier and more threadbare by the day. Eleanor of House Costaigne would travel to the Reach, giving eloquent testimony to the evil of her late king and the goodness of his successor. In later years, giving up all claims to nobility, she would join the faith, rising eventually to become Mother Eleanor at the Great Mother House in Lannisport. In their travels throughout the realm, the 7 speakers talked of Queen Alysanne, her piety, her generosity, and her love for the king, her brother. But for those Septons, begging brothers and pious knights and lords who challenged them by citing passages from the 7-pointed star, they had a ready answer, one Jaehaerys himself had crafted in King's Landing, ably assisted by Septon Oswick and Septon Barth. In later years, the Citadel and Starry Sept alike would call this the Doctrine of Exceptionalism. The faith of the 7 had been born in the hills of Andalos of old, and had crossed the narrow sea with the Andals. The lords of the 7 decreed that brother might not lie with sister, nor father with daughter, nor mother with son, that the result of such unions were abominations in the eyes of the gods. All this the exceptionalists affirmed, but with this caveat: the Targaryens were different. Their roots were not in Andalos, but of old Valyria, where different laws and traditions held sway. A man only had to look at them to know they were not like other men. Their eyes, their hair, their very bearing, or proclaim their differences, and they flew dragons. They alone of all the men in the world have been given this power to tame those fearsome beasts. Once the doom had come to Valyria, they were the only ones who could ride dragons. One god made us all, Andals and Valyrians and first men. One of the seven proclaimed, but he did not make us all alike. For you to bed your sister would be a grievous sin, but you are not blood of the dragon. What they do is what they have always done, and it is not for us to judge them. The realm did not rise up against King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne in 51 AC as it had against Aegon and Rhaena 10 years earlier. The why of it is a good deal less certain. The High Septon silence spoke loudly. The lords and common folk alike were weary of war, but if words had power, surely the seven speakers did play a part. Though the king was happy in his queen and the realm happy with their marriage, Jaehaerys had not been wrong when he foresaw that he would face a time of testing. Having remade the council, reconciled Lord Rogar Baratheon and Queen Alyssa, and imposed new taxes to restore the crown's coffers, he was faced with what would prove to be his most difficult problem, his sister, Reina. After leaving Castle Rock and the care of the Lannisters, Reina Targaryen and her travelling court made their own royal progress, visiting Ashmark Castamere, Golden-Tooth, Wayfarer's Rest, and finally Pink Maiden. No matter where she turned, the same problem arose to her. She told the king after his wedding, the lords were kind and courteous to her, but it did not last. Either she was unwelcome or too welcome. They murmured of costs of keeping her, but it's Dreamfire who excited them. Some fear her, more wanted her, and it was those who caused her the most trouble. They lust for a dragon of their own. The queen in the west did not know where to turn. The king told his sister she was welcome at court now he was king, but Reina could not live in her brother's shadow. She needed a seat of her own lands, a castle, and small folk. The king offered to build her a castle, on which she declined. She told her brother she already had a castle in mind. She was blood of the dragon, and there was one she had more of a right to than even he did, their father's seat, the place she was born, Dragonstone. To this the king was stunned to silence, but promised his older sister he would think on the matter. After reflecting on it, the king met with his sister again. He would grant her the seat of Dragonstone, as there was no better seat for the blood of the dragon, but she would hold it as his gift, and not by right. He would not carve her off her own kingdom, but she could still call herself queen. Reina questioned her brother's uncertainty that he would have her bend the knee, but she would agree if she could have one more thing, Eria, her daughter, returned to her. The king agreed quickly, maybe perhaps too quickly, and had forgotten that he made Eria his acknowledged heir, and until he had a child of his own, she would remain so. The year continued without further test as Jaehaerys and Alysanne settled into rule. If certain members of the small council were taken aback, the queen began to attend their meetings. They voiced their objections only to one another, as the young queen proved to be wise, well-read, and clever, and a welcome voice in any discussion. Alysanne Targaryen had happy memories of her childhood before her uncle Maegor seized the crown. During the reign of her father Aenys, her mother Queen Alyssa had made the court a splendid place filled with song, spectacle, and beauty. Musicians, mummers, and bards competed for her favour and that of the king. Wines of the arbour flowed like water at their feasts. The halls and yards of Dragonstone rang with laughter, and the women of the court dazzled in pearls and diamonds. Maegor's court had been a grim and dark place, and the regency had offered little change, for the memories of King Aenys' time were painful to his widow and her mother. Queen looked back on the short-lived glories of her father's court fondly, and made it her purpose to make the Red Keep glitter as it never had before, buying tapestries and carpets from the free cities, and commissioning murals, statuary, and tile work to decorate the castle's halls and chambers. At her command, men from the city watch combed Flea Bottom until they found Tom the Strummer, whose mocking songs had amused the king and commoners alike during the War of the White Cloaks. Alysanne made him the court singer, first of many who would hold the office in the decades to come. She brought in a harpist from Oldtown, and a company of mummers from Bravos, and dancers from Lys, and gave the Red Keep its first fool, a fat man called the Goodwife, who dressed as a woman and was never seen without his wooden children, a pair of cleverly carved puppets. All of this pleased King Jaehaerys, but none of it pleased him half so as much as the gift that Queen Alysanne gave him several months later, when she told him that she was with child.